Again, side-scrolling superheroes, I'm taking a look at X-Men Mutant Wars. This came out for the Game Boy Color in the year 2000, published by Activision, developed by HAL Corporation. And I'll tell you something, when I started side-scrolling superheroes, I didn't really consider it as something that was going to be hard work for me. It was more like I was going to go have fun and play some games that I haven't checked out for a long time, and I'd come back and report on them. This game kind of felt like hard work. This was a very cumbersome title, and I have some positives to talk about, so I'll jump into those first. I do like the fact that you get a bunch of different X-Men to play as. Wolverine, Iceman, Storm, Cyclops, Gambit, and you can switch between any of them as you want to. Each of them have their own powers and abilities. Obviously, like Cyclops will stand and shoot lasers out of his eyes, and Wolverine will do the hack and slash moves, and Storm will send out tornadoes, and Iceman will shoot out a little ice cannonball at people, and Gambit throws his cards. That's kind of cool. I also like some of the level design. I liked jumping on top of trains. There's something about that in all of these 90s games. They all like to be racing around on tops of trains, and it always looked pretty good, even on the itty-bitty Game Boy Color. Now, I did play this on my GameCube with the Game Boy player plugged in with the HDMI out, thanks to HD RGB. I love this thing. And it was all right on the television. It was cool to see the colors flash up. It always impresses me that the Game Boy Color element, the color part of it, didn't really let us down. They actually had colorful games on this platform. And this has got color, like Wolverine's crazy yellow and blue suit. It's fun to see all of that stuff pop off the screen. I like the character designs as well. They're kind of super deformed, and they all have enormous hands, particularly Wolverine. But I didn't mind it. I mean, it's kind of cutesy and scrunchy, but it kind of fits the platform as well. I also liked some of the bosses that you get to fight. You fight against Sabretooth and Mystique and a giant Sentinel, which was really fun. Magneto is in there. So there's some pretty interesting bad guys to encounter. They've also got a little bit of comic lore sort of cut in between some of the stages, and as you're loading up into the levels. Very first level takes place in Canada. That train sequence looks like it's actually running right through Vancouver, which was pretty fun for me. But this is such a clunky, unfun experience to dive into, and I don't know what they were thinking. It starts right off the bat too, because it's loaded with auto-regenerating bad guys, which can be a curse. Sometimes it's all right, like when you play Metroid and you leave a room and come back into a room, it's okay, because that's how you can kind of, give yourself some health and stuff. And certainly that works here as well. But that first bad guy that you take care of and he disappears, and you've got a little heart container floating up to the top of the screen. You jump and collect that heart container and it freezes. The game just stops for a second. And you think, man, is this thing glitching out? But nope, that's part of the design. Every time you get the heart container, the game stops for a second, and it's just so off-putting. And that's kind of indicative of the way that the game controls and feels all the way through. Whether you're in boss fights, it feels, clunky and cumbersome. You never know if you're in the correct part of the screen. The characters are actually quite large relative to the screen dimensions, and so you're constantly in the wrong place at the wrong time, and there are a lot of cheap deaths. You'll face enemies that will just sort of attach themselves to you like suckerfish, and you can't shake them off, and it's just not enjoyable. I mean, there's some interesting concepts that would have worked in a more fluid experience, but it's just not fluid. It's very clunky, and the end result is you just feel like you're dying because the design was not finished properly. It needed another 3 or 4 months of tuning and finessing just to make it feel a little more tactile, a little more fun, a little more just enjoyable to get lost in. The game didn't have that. Obviously, they had a release date. It was kind of tied to the launch of the X-Men film on DVD, and you can feel that this was a quick, get it together and get it out there, which is too bad, because they've got a lot of interesting elements, and obviously playing as the X-Men is always kind of cool to check out in any video game. But this is not one that I'm going to go back to. It's not one that I can recommend that you play. It was an interesting exercise for me, but I'm glad it's over. I'm going to give X-Men Mutant Wars for the Game Boy Color a 5 out of 10.